Hi, I'm Rachel Andrews, welcome to Everyday Athlete. On this week's video, I thought we'd talk about neoprene gloves. I'm going to take a look at the kind of features to look for and how to fit them, as well as how to look after them once you've used them. As the temperature drops, you'll notice that getting in and going swimming in cold water can feel just a little bit too much sometimes. If you get your fingers and toes really cold, it can make getting dressed very, very difficult as you lose your dexterity and you kind of get these bumbly fingers that don't really work. In water, we lose temperature 20 times quicker than we do in air. So it's not surprising that the heat is conducted straight away from your body, especially on those extremities. And with the blood so close to the surface, that also can affect your core body temperature. There are certainly some people who will swim completely skins with no gloves, no booties, and I take my hat off to those stoics. So for me, it's all about the gloves at this time of year. Neoprene is a really thick, multi-layered material, which will keep your hands fairly dry. When water does get in, it works by trapping that water in there and then your body heat warming up the water. Something to look for is whether or not the seals are taped. So in this version, we have a small amount of a very thin layer of glue over the taping on the inside of the glove, which you can see on each of the seams here, this thin little amount of glue over the top. And then on the outside, we just have the straight stitching. I mean, the stitching is very nice, but it isn't covered by a layer of rubber, which would help to seal it and to stop any water ingress. Looking at the other set, we've got, on the inside, we've got some stitching, but we don't have any glue whatsoever over the top of that. There's a little bit of glue here, which we'll come back to later because it's there for a different reason. And then when we look on the outside of the glove, we can see that there is a band of rubberized glue stuck over all of the seams just to minimise the water getting through. So the next feature to look out for, the gloves don't flush water in and out of them, is what they look like at the wrist. So on this one, we have a straight up wrist, nice long thick piece of neoprene, which would be great and fit right underneath a wetsuit, which is what I think it's probably intended for. But at the top, there's no tapering. You can see it's just the same both sides, and it doesn't go in, and there's no particular seal on the end. It is just a neoprene glove that finishes quite high up the wrist. Looking at this one, you can see it tapers in at the edges, so it's quite a lot thinner around the wrist area. It comes in. And you can see we've got this this tapering where they've sealed that, obviously sewn a different piece of neoprene on there. And then on the inside, we have actually got a little bit of glue, a tiny amount of glue, to try to seal that and make a gasket at the wrist. Of the two, this one works better when I'm swimming skins because I don't get water flushing in through the wrist, unlike the longer wrist, which doesn't taper in, which does flush water through it. Once you've established that the gloves you're looking at have the right taping that you're after and the right thickness that you're interested in, the next thing to do is to make sure you get your hand measured correctly. Most manufacturers measure around the knuckle area. So they want you to do that on your largest hand, which will be your dominant hand. For me, that's my right hand, so let's have a little go at this. So just going to trap it there with my thumb, bring it around 19.5 centimetres. So that means for most manufacturers, I fall into the medium bracket. Now, if I was on the lower or higher end of the bracket, so that I was on the cusp between large or small, then I would go with the smaller of the two options that I was presented with, because what I want is a really nice fit on my fingers so that there's not lots of bagginess around the glove and I don't end up with big gaping areas where the water can pool, which will make my hands get pretty cold. Once you've been for your swim, what you need to do with the gloves is wash them off in fresh water and then you need to dry them out. I would strongly suggest not putting them onto a source of heat, but letting them air dry naturally. One thing you can do is stand them on top of something to try and get them kind of stood upright so they drain down and air dry at the same time. Possibly something which is tubular in construction and has a hole at the bottom to try and get some air up the middle. I'm still experimenting with my drying rack, so to speak, and once I've got a really good idea, then I'll put a video up about that as well. Well, these are just two of the gloves that are out on the market for open water swimming. There's plenty of stuff out there to choose from, but hopefully now you have a few pointers to consider when you're thinking about what to put on your Christmas list or what you're going to buy for yourself next week. Think about taped seams, think about the fit, think about whether or not you've got a tapered wrist or whether it's a long wrist, and whether you're going to put it with a wetsuit or whether you're swimming skins. There's quite a lot to think about, but you can certainly narrow the field down to getting some that you're really interested in trying out. Let me know how you get on, and if you enjoy my videos, please think about subscribing. Click on my face in the top corner here, and I'd love to have you along. See you next time.